All right, good morning, KW Milwaukee, on a beautiful, balmy January 31st of 2023. It's a great day to be alive. So I opened it up with Bob Marley and the Whalers this morning for a very specific reason. So as I was going to the gym this morning at 5, I walked outside in a shorts and t-shirts. And I thought to myself, God, it's awful cold out this morning. Until I realized it was -9. And I thought there's no better way to shift your mindset than playing a little Bob Marley and the Whalers, thinking about having a beer, listening to live music at the Snook Inn on Marco Island, if you've ever been. So it's a good spot, good salty dive bar if you've never been. All right, so a little bit of a different format this morning as it relates to team meeting. I'm going to walk through a few quick updates for the group that you guys need and should be paying attention to. And then I'm actually turning it over to somebody else, a special guest that we will introduce you to pour into this group for about 30 to 40 minutes. Cool? Beautiful. All right, jumping right into it. 2023 phrases of focus. I keep planting the seeds for you, right? Today is day one. Today is day one. Be consistent and be curious. And I'll lead you with be curious this morning because I think the way in which that you approach this morning's conversation will allow you to be curious and open your mind as to what 2023 may have in store for you. Okay? Be curious about the conversation and lean in. Okay, a few quick reminders for you that are important as it relates to your income to ensure you aren't paying Uncle Sam. 1099 documents, many of them have already started arriving in the mail. So make sure that you check your mail. Your 1099 as it relates to your GCI will be coming likely this week. 2, I know this is in the mail because I received it yesterday. The 1099s as it relates to your profit share statements. They arrived at my house yesterday afternoon, so be on the lookout for those. And then lastly, last week, Willis, Caitlin, or Jackie Vosters will have sent you an email as it relates to deductions and business expense reductions that you can take against your income in 2022. So you want to make sure that you find that email, print that email, and provide it to your accountant. Make sense? Beautiful. Next up. Few training and events reminders for the group. As a reminder, voting ends today, January 31st. We are providing what we hope to be an incredible experience for TOSA and North Shore agents upcoming here next week on February 7th. And save the date for Lake Country, February 22nd from 9 to 11. Yes. It's the 9th. My apologies. Thursday the 9th, not the 7th. Thursday the 9th. So beautiful. Oh, it's Stillman's birthday? The mayor's birthday. All right. Last couple things. Stillman, future birthday boy, kicked off Ignite yesterday with an incredible session around qualify and win the sellers. This week, we have Angelique Cruz with work with buyers and sellers, and Annie Stabler pouring into you as it relates to make and receive offers. Okay. Again, you don't have to be signed up for the entire Ignite course. If these are people that you want to lean into and learn from, again, diversity of thought and diversity of approach is incredibly healthy as we navigate the market of the moment. I encourage you to check it out. All classes are held Monday, Wednesday, Friday down in the New Berlin Training Center from 9 to about 11. Sound good? Also, just released February training calendar, a ton of great stuff to pay attention to, and I'm going to highlight a handful of things. First, Opportunity Knocks, which we just hosted in North Shore last week, will be again this week out in Lake Country to help our Lake Country teams grow. So if you're interested in learning more about the teams in Lake Country, they are hosting a phenomenal networking event this week, tomorrow, 3:30 to 5. Next week, Tuesday, right after team meeting, Negotiating and Defending Your Commission with Bruce Gallagher, Leanne Pluster, Paul Nikolic at 10:30 a.m. out in Lake Country. So you can jump out there, be a participant in team meeting, and then learn how to defend your commission in an ever tightening market. Learn how they get 6% plus when they take their listings. Yes, Reardon. I'll follow up. The question was it on Zoom? I will follow up. Next week, Wednesday, JSG, Jay Schmidt himself in the North Shore office will be hosting a Profit First boot camp. Okay. Here's the thing. I know a lot of real estate agents that make a great top line revenue. I also know a ton of real estate agents that have a horrible bottom line net income. And I'll use an example. I met with a $36 million team. Okay. $36 million team on just basic math of using the 30-30-40 model. And if you don't know what the 30-30-40 model is, you should write it down and research it in the MREA. It means you're aiming for a 40% net profit margin. Okay. This $36 million team with a 40% net profit margin should be netting close to $1 million in income. Okay. Their net the previous year was 72,000. So if you want to make sure that you're paying attention of where the dollars and cents are going, Jay's an incredible teacher of the Profit First model and leaning into that model. So Wednesday, February 8th. Next up, a very, very popular segment for us in February. On Thursday, February 9th, via Zoom, we have MBE CPAs with Tim Moy and Diane Payne. We'll be teaching you tips and tricks and things you should be paying attention to so that you don't pay Uncle Sam too much money in 2022 as it relates to your taxes. Sound good? This will be on Zoom and it will be recorded and it will be available to you on the YouTube channel post-training. Make sense? Beautiful. And then lastly, a couple other things coming up in February, cybercrime and real estate, the latest types and trends. It will be on Southwest and Zoom combo on Monday the 13th and Tuesday the 14th live in Lake Country right after team meeting. Very popular topic. If you don't think it can happen to you, you're being totally ignorant and naive as to what's going on within the industry. I'd recommend you just kind of tune in. Sherry Hippenbecker, who's the Chief General Counsel for Nightberry Title and Focus Title, who has come on to provide us some of these insights as to what's happening, will be leading these discussions on the 13th and 14th. Sound good? Beautiful. February is a packed month. We're leaning into helping you sharpen your swords. Time to get out the axe and make sure it's extra sharp. Sound good? Beautiful. All right, last week, I shared with you a little bit around the market perspective, right? And I challenged the group as it relates to relative performance versus absolute performance. And I asked you posed to you three questions. What does your line look like? What is the outcome of your leadership? And where is your leadership within your business or life? Because you can have absolute performance that bucks the trend. The only thing that matters in business is absolute performance. Relative doesn't matter. And I shared with you that last year there were 30,359 listings that were taking, which means there were roughly 61,000 and some change sides that were had. 61,000 sides. The top 1% in our industry are doing anywhere from 200 to 400 deals out of 61,000. And I asked you, are you done? No, that's why you're here. Pick something really big and go after it. And there's no way you cannot look at 30,000 new listings and say, I can't achieve my goals this year. Okay. That was the frame of focus in which I led you with. Having said all that, I'm going to shift it over to Sarah Oberbrunner, who's going to introduce today's guest speaker to pour into the group. Oberbrunner, it's off to you.
All right, perfect. I'm excited to introduce to you guys Greg Kapp. Greg Kapp is a person who's extremely successful, both on a professional and personal level. I think we meet people through life who have one or the other, but Greg really has it all. I've been friends with Greg's daughter, Becky, for over the past 28 years, and I've had the opportunity to be around Greg on several occasions. And, you know, one of my favorite memories of Greg is I would love when he would pick us up from school or the movies or the mall in 7th grade. Those 20 minutes on our ride home, Greg would just speak to us about our value, our worth, our identity, affirmations, and how we could really have anything if we really believed it. He kind of started in me about the importance of investing in myself. So, Greg, we're happy to have you on. I love you, and I know you could be so many other places today, and I just thank you for pouring into our group.
Wow. Thank you, Sarah. hey, you're not supposed to make the speaker tear up when you're introducing them. Stop doing these things. But hey, thank you for that wonderful introduction, and hello to everybody. And the first thing I think about is you're getting motivated by Charlie at these Zooms. You should, if you don't count your blessings every day, you're subconsciously counting your problems. So I would start off by saying, remember, when he said, hey, it's a beautiful fall day, I really thought it's probably like 30 in Milwaukee today. See, he already had me changing my picture. So remember that. And all these trainings that you have, you know what I mean? There's a lot of business owners that don't have trainings like you just had, the list that you had. I want to get involved in some of these, especially that 30, 30, 40 deal I just heard about. But do you understand what I'm saying? You got to learn to start off your day by counting your blessings. Obviously, Charlie does that. And you should be feel blessed that you have somebody like him that starts you off in your day. And write this in your notes. If you're ever bored with training, I'm going to tell you something. It's real. You're not growing. See, did you ever read a success book the first time and you underlined a bunch of things, right? And then you read it again and you started underlining other things. It's not that you didn't see them the first time. It's that you grew between that time. And in life, there's only two things. Look, I'm turning 72. And yet for me, I know I'm either growing or dying, right? I got 5 grandchildren. I got to grow for their sakes. So think about this. If you ever hear a training or you ever read a success book or anything, even principles of success, if you ever get bored, I'm going to promise you it's a sign that you're not growing, because none of us on this Zoom can out-earn our income. And I know that real estate is going through a cyclical thing right now, right? And I understand it. But, my career, I've been in business 36 years. I've been through all kinds of cycles. But see, during a good cycle, it literally increases your belief in yourself when you're doing that well. But in a down cycle, here's the benefit. That's the time to work on your mental toughness. See, because you can't grow without getting mentally tough. And so I have a saying that I say many times throughout the day: every adversity in my life has a benefit equal or greater than the adversity, if and only if I look at it. So even though I know you're all going through some tough times cyclically, I also know this, that I when I would be down, there was times when I was making so much money, I couldn't believe it. But then there was years when things were tough. And then, I would say to you, that's your time to get back to your old clients. You know what I'm saying? Do you know that you're only 4 degrees of separation from everybody on earth? It used to be 6 until the internet. So what does that mean? You start contacting some old clients. How are you doing? Know some things about their children. Was your daughter in that piano recital? Because guess what? They know somebody who knows somebody that's daughter just got married, and they want to buy a home, but they don't know how to right now, right? You know someone who knows someone who wants to buy $1 million house in the Milwaukee area. So see, one thing that I would say you should do is contact your old clients, right? Stay in contact with them, because you have to remind them that this is your branding, that you're in real estate. And then when you're done talking to them, don't forget, by the way, if you know anybody that's interested in buying or selling a home, think about me, right? That's one thing you gotta do. Now, the other thing you gotta do in times that are tough is you gotta prospect, right? And to me, prospecting simply means turning a stranger to a friend, right? So, I'd go to lunch and I'd say, you know what? My goal is I'm gonna get 3 phone numbers at lunch. Not talking about my business, just getting a phone number from somebody, from something I have in common, and then starting to text them, turning a stranger into a friend. I'm just going to take 3 minutes here to tell my story, because it's got a lot of lessons in it. And I'm a big believer that, if I waste a minute of your time today, I'm going to pay for that. So, I grew up in Milwaukee. I got poor grades in Mesmer High School. I don't like to admit that publicly, but I got poor grades. So I took a job in a post office. You know why? Because I had a low identity. I had a father who projected negatively on me as a kid. But you know what? My brothers, they took that negative projection and they used it to motivate themselves. I got down on myself. And so that's why I took a job in the post office. And I worked there for 15 years on 3rd shift. And my wife worked in a brewery, Miller Brewery, because we didn't want anyone else bringing up our children. And so at age 40, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but I started a business, but I had a great mentor. And so you would think that with a great mentor, I'd be successful. Well, I had the mental toughness of a squirrel. Every little rejection hurt me so bad. You see that? That's why when you have a low identity, it's hard to handle rejection. But the 7-figure earners on this Zoom, they know rejections like that to them. It's like a person walking out of Walmart. They don't care. You see the difference? So anyways, one night I just couldn't handle it anymore and I quit. And I had promised my wife she was going to quit her job at the brewery and I was going to win the trip to Hawaii. I promised her everything, right? And so I just quit. And I was kind of slumped on the couch waiting for my wife to come home because she'd get home at 11, wake me up, and I'd go to the post office at 12. And she said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Honey, I'm so sorry, but I can't do this anymore. I'm not meant to do this. I'm quitting." And she said to me, "Look at me." And she said, "You know, when I married you, you had a light in your eye. But after 15 years at that post office, I saw that light disappear. And when you got in this business in the beginning, I saw that light come back." And then she said to me these words that I can remember like they were yesterday. She said, "I don't care if you never make money in this business, but I don't want you to ever quit because I believe in you." Now, there's a principle right there. Not only do you want to believe in your children, you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe you are the best realtor, even when you're not. Why? Because people buy your belief in yourself. What's the other great lesson in my story? It's that don't make a decision when you're down. I could have made a bad decision, couldn't I? And there's a lot of people will tell you in life, Greg Kapp should have never quit. See what I mean? And then you know what? Even if your spouse doesn't believe in you or you don't have a spouse, you got people like Keller Williams that believe in you. But you know, one thing you got to learn to do is you got to believe it. Because see, my mentor kept speaking greatness into me, but I didn't believe him because I had such a low identity. You know what I said? He probably says this to everybody. You know, because he said, "Greg, I see some skills in you and some talent in you, and you're going to be big in our business." And I was like, "Man, you should talk to my family," right? And but guess what? I found out that I can't just keep letting him believe in me, let my wife believe in me. I got to believe in myself. And so that's how you grow your identity. One of the most important things a human being can do. Because you know what? Abraham Lincoln said this: "When you feel good, you do good." When you're feeling good, you don't need Charlie to motivate you to prospect. You're talking to everybody in the mall, right? But when you're feeling bad, you don't even want to get out of the house. You see what I mean? And so you got to learn how to feel good, especially when things are going bad. And so that, you know, that's just love. And then you can tell, you know, I became very successful. I've been making 7-figure income for over 20 years now. But there's principles in my story that I continue to what? Work on myself from the inside out. Because remember, there's only 3 things a human being can control. Number 1 is your mind and every one of your thoughts. Number 2 is your emotions, all the good ones and the bad ones. And number 3 is your willpower. You know, closing a real estate deal is all about willpower. And I would suggest this to you. The next time you're driving to a closing, instead of hoping you're going to close, I would say to myself, this is the most fortunate couple in the world because I found them the perfect house for them. And they're not just getting their dream house, they're getting me as their realtor, and I'm going to be there for them. Do you see that? You know, even on Zoom, your vibrations come through. So when you're confident, confidence vibrates with your clients. And when you have a lack of confidence, it vibrates too. So sometimes you say the same words as Charlie, but you don't have the same feelings inside. And so I got this 3-step formula. You're going to have to thank my goddaughter, Sarah, for this, but I'm going to tell you a 3-step formula that's going to help your confidence go through the roof today. Anybody want to know about it? Now, here's the takeaway. I can't tell you today. We'll get it the next time I'm on Keller Williams, which is probably never. No, here it is. Are you ready? Number 1, you got to know what you know. Number 2, you got to know who knows what you don't know. Let's go over those 2 again. You got to know what you know, because if you go on an appointment worrying about questions that you don't know how to answer, that puts out insecurity. And I'm telling you, everything in our minds vibrates. Haven't you been with somebody and you said, something's weird about this person, I got to get out of here? It's because their thoughts were vibrating. They said one thing, they were thinking another thing. So you got to know what you know. So quit worrying about what you don't know. I mean, to think about selling a house, I just can imagine what you have to know about everything. So you know what you know who knows what you don't know. That's all you need to know. So if I was a realtor and they said, hey, Greg, listen, is there something about the plumbing in here that if the plumbing goes down, that there's something to rectify it? I would look them straight in the eye and I'd say, you know what? I'm about 90% sure of the answer to that question, but I never answer questions unless I'm 100% sure I'm going to get back to you again in an hour. Then I panically call Charlie. Hey, dude, help me out, right? Do you understand? I went my whole career like this because why? In the beginning, when people ask me questions, I look down. You know, your body, when you give a message, it's 55 body language, 38 tone of voice, and only 7% your words. See how too many of you are worrying too much about your words? And so no one ever said Greg Kapp doesn't know anything. They liked the fact that I was honest with them. But here's my point. I'm going to teach you a great people skill right now that I want you to work on in the down times, because when things start blowing up at the end of 2023 and 2024, you're going to be ready. It's called the ladder. All right, so write this down. The word L stands for look people in the eye. And when you're on Zoom, you better look at that little green dot on your phone, because look what happens when I go like this. Doesn't it look like I'm scared? You got to learn. You got to learn. TV announcers look at that little red dot, right? And so the L stands for look people in the eye, because your body language, if you don't look them in the eye, says either I don't know what I'm talking about or I'm lying to you. The A stands for ask good questions, because if you don't open up a person's heart first, they never hear your message. Did you catch that one? See, 90% of people in sales connect to the head. That's where the objections lie. That's how I used to be. And I can't believe that a billionaire would teach a postal worker from Milwaukee this powerful lesson that, Greg, when you learn how to connect to the heart, then the heart opens up. And so you want to ask good questions. So if someone loves golf, they're going to talk about golf, but they don't want to talk about real estate, right? So you, when you're prospecting somebody, you got to learn, look people in the eye, ask good questions, and then take that deep. Like if someone told me that one of you gave out 100 free turkeys at Thanksgiving, that would be a great thing for me to ask about. Is that true? And you'd say, yeah. I said, where'd you learn that from? Well, my mother came here from another country and she said, if we ever have money, we're going to do that. I'd say, tell me about your mother. See what I'm doing? I'm asking a good question, but I'm getting you to talk. Now, the D stands for when they start talking, don't interrupt them, because you block the flow. Now you close the heart back up again. Tell me the truth. When you walk on a car lot and you have to buy a car, don't you just hate it when the car salesman starts walking toward you? Tell me the truth. And you don't want to connect with them, right? When they say, hey, you're enjoying the cold weather? See what I'm saying? Okay, so the first D is don't interrupt. The second D is don't change the subject. So when you say, where would you like to go on these cold days? And they go, man, I'd like to go to Tahiti. Well, that's not your time to say, hey, I was in Tahiti about 2 years ago. Okay, so you got it. Look them in the eye, ask good questions. Don't interrupt them. Don't change the subject. And then the E stands for empathize if they're negative. So if they say, man, I can't believe that steaks are double. Say, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's incredible, isn't it? But you're not agreeing with them. You're just empathizing with them. And then the R, it's going to help you so much. Are you ready for the R? I don't think you're ready for the R. I don't think Keller Williams is ready for the R. You know what the R stands for? Don't only agree verbally, right? Don't respond verbally. Respond non-verbally, because most people have something called addiction approval. So tell me the truth. Weren't you as a realtor talking to someone and the whole time you talked, they were like this? And you said to yourself, are they listening? Are they mad at me? Do they want to kill me? Right? And so when you nod your head in agreement, people who have addiction approval, which a lot of people do, their subconscious says, you know, I like this person. Why? Because you're agreeing with them. And so every time I get on Zoom, every time I do appointment, I go over fundamentals, because fundamentals are easy to forget, right? And so I just would go over that ladder example. And you know what? I'm not getting paid to talk to you today. Well, you're probably going to say, okay, why is this guy giving us all the secrets of 7 figures? Because everything I share, I strengthen in myself. See, some of you are making good money, but you're not sharing it with other people. And guess what? You're losing it. See, every time I've shared this with someone that I can't benefit from, I get extremely blessed. I get extremely blessed. So let's start talking about making money, right? Because, you know, Sarah, she told me that the average sale in December was about 350,000. So, you know, basically, if you get one transaction, hey, thank you for all these nice comments, but hey, on a transaction, let's just say you make about 8 to 10,000, right? So in other words, if you want to make 100,000 this year, you need to say, you know what? I do one transaction a month. I do one transaction a month, because you got to say it out of your mouth and get it in your heart. And so, you know, and if you want to make what, one transaction a week, right? Either a listing or a sale, well, then you're going to make like 400 or 500 grand a year. And if you're going to do, you know, 100 in 1 year, you should be making, I think, 7 figures. But I don't know your business like you do. But anyway, I learned something from the book Think and Grow Rich, which teaches all about the conscious and the subconscious mind. And so in there, they had the 6 steps to success. And my mentor, who's a billionaire today, told me, Greg, I just studied this thing and I did it every day. So here's what it says. It says, number 1, fix in your mind exactly how much money you want to make this year, right? So if it's 100, write that down. If it's 500, if it's 1 million, whatever it is. Number 2, write down what you're willing to give up for it. You know what that should be? How many phone calls you're going to make a day to old clients, to prospects, how many new friends you're going to make. Because if I was in real estate, I would say to myself, every time I go to lunch, I'm getting 3 new phone numbers from strangers so that I can now start texting them, saying positive things to them, and then putting out there, hey, I'm in real estate. And if you know anybody, you know what I mean? I would appreciate it if you're referring to me. So that's number 2. Number 3 is you got to have a deadline with no exit strategy. See, a lot of people set goals, but when they go through the goal, they say, well, I didn't do that good in January. No, now you're not a person of your word. The number 1 best quality a human being can have is be a person of their word. And so number 3 is you got to set a deadline, and you can't have any exit strategies anymore. You can't say, well, you know, I was sick in January, you know, I mean, like excuses, because whenever you complain or give excuses, you weaken your own willpower. You didn't catch what I just said. Every time you complain or make an excuse, you weaken your own willpower, and willpower is all you got. I think you can see with me as a 72-year-old man, I got a lot of willpower, right? But I learned to develop it. I didn't have it as a postal worker, but when I found out I could take care of my family, because the spirit of winning comes from love of family. How much do you love your family? See what I mean? I had to go through a lot of crap to get to where I am today. But man, I love my wife. I love my 2 daughters. And so I didn't know how to win. But learning how to succeed is not taught by Charlie and all these mentors. It's caught by you. You have to have a burning desire to catch it. You know, I remember this story about Socrates. You know, when you're a grandpa, you can tell a lot of stories. And so Socrates, you know, supposedly had all the wisdom of the world. So this young man came up to him at the beach and said, Socrates, sir, he said, I understand that you have all the wisdom in the world, and I want to know exactly what you know. And Socrates said, oh, really? So he said, come walk with me. So they started walking on the water. And you know what? They got about knee deep. And the kid thought, well, he's teaching me something. I don't know what. Then they got waist deep. And then all of a sudden he got neck deep. And all of a sudden, Socrates took him by the hair and shoved him under the water like this. And he held him down there. And after 20 seconds, the kid was thinking, what is he trying? What's he trying to teach me? Then after 40 seconds, he said, he's trying to kill me. And he came out like this, ready to hit him. And Socrates said this famous line to him. He said, son, when your desire to know everything I know is the same as it was for that next breath of air, then and only then will you know what I know. Do you see that? It's not about the mentoring you're getting. It can't be taught to you. It's got to be caught by you. That's just a powerful thing that I have learned. And it's any one of you can learn it. All you got to do is look at my story. I was a postal worker, downtown Milwaukee, letter sorter operator until I was almost 40 years old, right? And so I want you to think about these 3 things now, because everything in life comes down to these 3 things. I don't care what. I don't care if you want to be an actress, and I don't care if you want to be, you know, buy a grocery store. I don't care what you want to do in life. It comes down to focus, motivation, and execution. You will find that those three things, because remember, I think I didn't even finish what I said before. Like the three things that you have control of yourself are your mind and your conscious and subconscious, your emotions, and your will. I did say that before. Well, this is what matches up with those three things. See, I can't control another human being. I don't want to control another human being, because if we were meant to control people, then an alcoholic father could ruin their daughter's life, couldn't they? No, God gave us control over ourselves, and our soul is made up of our mind, our will, our emotions. So your focus should be, number one, my big picture, which is I am cash flowing $350,000 this year, period, right? Because I deserve it and my family deserves it. Okay, so then your subconscious, because that's your conscious, your subconscious, you should repeat that over and over again, because it's very important to repeat your affirmations over and over again. I heard Charlie say about 8 of them already this morning. And then your emotion. Did you ever feel like, sometimes you feel great and then later in the day you feel terrible? Well, that means sometimes you're your own best friend, but sometimes you're your own worst enemy. You don't need being your own worst enemy anymore. Quit talking about what your weaknesses are. I think you can all tell I got a lot of weaknesses, right? But I got a lot of people around me who are good at things that I'm not, right? And I'd rather pay somebody $20 an hour to take care of some details so that I can be making $2,000 to $3,000 an hour when I'm doing a Zoom presentation, let's say. So does that make sense to you? Stop being your own worst enemy and talking about what your weaknesses are. Everyone's got weaknesses. And so you got to become your own best friend. And I'll tell you this, you got to learn to fall in love with yourself too, because that's what my mentor said to me. I'll never forget one time he said to me, you know what, Cap? You ask a lot of worry questions, because I was worried about everything. And then he said to me this, he said, was your dad a worrier? I said, no, my dad was a construction worker. He didn't worry about anything. Then he said, was your mom a worrier? I said, man, my mom had like a master's degree in worry. She was worried when she had nothing to worry about. And then he said this to me, which I didn't understand because I wasn't very spiritual back then. He said, don't forget what I'm going to tell you, Greg. He said, worry is a spirit. And that spirit, your mother passed it on to you because it was familiar in your home. Man. So you know what I learned to do? I loved my mother, but I disconnected from her worry. I loved my brother, but I disconnected from his negativity. See, you got to learn to deal with stuff and then disconnect from it. Otherwise, it's here. Have you ever talked to a negative family member? Have you ever talked to a negative friend? And even though you're off the phone with them for 2 days, you still remember what they said. Learn to deal with things and disconnect with them. I'll be completely candid today. I woke up today and I was extremely sick. And my wife said to me, she said, here, take some Mucinex, take it. That's what my wife does, right? And so she said, if you want, you could just reschedule this. I said, no, honey, I'm a man of my word. And you know what? I'm feeling better because I came on here. See what I mean? You want to learn to develop the habit of being a person of your word. If you say I'm going to get 2 phone numbers at lunch, get them. Then you know what? All these chemicals explode. Dopamine explodes. Oxytocin explodes. Serotonin. Even Sarah's can't believe what I'm saying right now, right? But you know what I mean? Because you got to feel good about yourself. And if you had a bad month in January, forget about it. Just like a Milwaukee Brewer that struck out 10 times in a row. You know what they say when they strike out 10 times in a row? I feel sorry for the next pitcher because I'm overdue to get a hit. You got to start talking that way about yourself. All right, January was bad. And I'm going to tell you another thing. Be careful who you're talking to, because all of a sudden they start saying, real estate's tough. Nobody's buying. Nobody's listening. And then you know what? It's okay if you hear that in your outer ear, but if you start saying it, it goes in your inner ear and it becomes a truth. I'm real cautious. You got to remember now, I'm 72. I've been doing this half my life. I'm cautious to who I permit to talk in my ear. See what I mean? Because guess what? Worry is contagious. You ever been around a worrier? Insecurity is contagious. So you're going to become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so just be careful about your thoughts, because eventually your thoughts become words. And that's what you don't want to do, because when you say the word out of your mouth, it goes directly into your heart with no filter. So when you're saying things like, man, I'm telling you right now, this is tough, right? And then you tell it to another person, which is really terrible, because now they're going to repeat what you said. And guess what? Now you're starting to attract people not giving you their phone number. Now you're starting to attract people. So you got to say, I'm getting referrals from all my clients. I'm sending out an email to them. I'm getting referrals, right? Because you don't want to lower your expectation in a cyclical downturn like this, right? Because expectation is everything. There's a law that says you're going to get what you expect, period. And so you know what? You can say now, okay, January's over. It was great. I had 7 transactions, or January was a nightmare. It doesn't matter to either one of you, right? Because you get to start all over again, because there's beginnings, endings, and new beginnings. And at age 72, I call a new beginning about every 15 minutes. And nobody can tell me I can't call a new beginning. Are you catching my drift now? You know what I mean? Who can tell you can't say that, hey, I got a brand new beginning. Ever since I met Sarah's godfather, I'm going to write it down that, you know what, I got a brand new beginning today. And I'm going to take all the good things from my past and all the lessons I learned, but I'm having amnesia about all my mistakes because it doesn't serve you to carry mistakes from your past into your present. You know, everybody has adversity, right? I mean, if you're going to set a goal, I'll guarantee something that's coming is adversity, right? So when you set a goal, then you're either going to be in a storm, and some of you are in a storm right now, and I know it, right? You think I got a psychic phone number to call. No, some of you are in a storm right now, right? But then other ones of you are just coming out of a storm, right? And you're going like this, wow, that's over. It could be personal, it could be business, right? And guess what the third is? So you're either in a storm, you're just coming out of a storm, or you're about to enter another storm. That's how life is. So you know what? Forget about now getting upset when adversity comes. Start saying what I do. Every adversity's got a benefit if I look for it. That raises my expectation. If the trial doesn't kill me, it's got to make me stronger. See, that raises my expectation. You know, the only easy day was yesterday. I learned that one from the military, right? But you got to learn, don't react to adversity by saying, man, 2 canceled appointments. Everything comes in 3s. I'll probably get another one. Does that make sense? See, you got to keep your expectation high. In fact, the word faith, and it's not a church word to me because I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious at all. The word faith translates to 2 words, intense expectation. So guess what fear is? The exact opposite, intense expectation of something bad happening to you. And so I'll never forget when my mentor told me the story. I was only in business with him for a month. And we're driving in his car, and he said, Greg, you know what? I had an appointment. At the time, I think he was making $5 million a year when I first met him way back then. And he said to me, I was driving on an appointment, and he said, in Atlanta, and he said the tread on one of those semis came off. It wasn't a flat tire, but you know how the tread comes off? And it hit the side of his Mercedes, but he said, I'm still going to make my appointment. And then he noticed that the window was shattered on the passenger side. And then he noticed that there was blood by his thighs from his pants because the pieces of glass went in there. So here's what he did. He called up his wife and he said, honey, I'm going to go to this Mercedes dealership. I want you to bring me a suit. And then he called the dealership and said, hey, I got a shattered window. I'm going to need a loaner car immediately. And he told me, I drove in, Greg. My wife gave me the suit. I got the loaner car and I made my appointment. And he said to me, why do you think I made that appointment? Man, if that was the old me, I would have, if I was making $5 million, I would have bailed immediately. And he said, Greg, think of adversity as a personality. No one ever told me this before. But see, when people are making more money than me, just because I don't understand it, I write things down. And he said to me, think of adversity as a person. And he said, you never want adversity to know that its willpower is stronger than yours. And he said, that's why I made the appointment. I didn't need the money. I needed my inner person to know that nothing's going to stop me. And man, that has helped me through so much. And that's why I say to you, don't react to it anymore. That's what adversity wants you to do. You respond to it by saying, man, you know what? I'm going to get 7-fold return on all these canceled appointments I just got today. That's what I say about everything. And guess what? It keeps on coming back to me. You know, here's a good story about belief. Because remember this, facts are boring. Numbers are numbing. But stories connect to the heart. Become a great storyteller. That's what Steve Jobs said. He had a quote that said something like, the people that control the universe are great storytellers. See, when I tell my story, nobody can argue with my story, but when I give facts, people are arguing with me. And I remember that the guy that started NFL Films, he said this. He said, tell me a fact and I'll understand. Tell me a truth and I will believe. But tell me a story, I'll keep it in my heart forever. Well, anyway, Napoleon Hill, who wrote the book Think and Grow Rich back in 1902, I think, his wife was pregnant. And he was so fired up. And he's the one that taught me this every adversity line that I say. So his wife was pregnant. He was all excited. And here comes his son. And he has no ears. Now, I ask all of you, if you were a mother or a father and you saw your son come out with no ears, what's the first words that come out of your mouth? You know what he said? He said, every adversity has a benefit if I look for it. And he kept saying that every day. Then he found out by the time the boy was like 5 or 6 that if he put his mouth where his ears should be, through conduction, and you can tell I'm not a doctor, but through conduction, he would just say to him, son, God made you this way on purpose, and you're going to do something great with your life. And he said that to him every day. This is a true story. You know what Napoleon Hill's sons did in his mid-20s? He invented an apparatus for the hearing impaired. But watch how I took this story and took it to another level. I'm getting double park goosebumps right now. Okay, so then I said, God, it's obvious that Napoleon Hill lied to his son, right? Because he didn't know if his son was made that way by God. And so I said, if Napoleon Hill could deceive his son to believe he's going to do something great with his life, then I'm going to deceive myself. And I'm going to start saying Greg Kapp was meant to succeed in this business. And I start to say it every day. And if you ever met anyone in my business, they would say to you, Greg Kapp was born to do the business that he does. You wouldn't have said that if you knew me as a postal worker in Milwaukee. I used to be extremely shy. I used to be very timid, right? I was afraid to dial phone numbers. When I would double the 9 like this on the old rotary phone, my heart would be like this, and I'd hang up right away. I had to get through all that, but I'm telling you right now, if you want to raise your identity, I wrote a couple of things down here, right? You got to become a person of your word. See what I mean? When you set a goal, you got to hit a goal. Now, at the end of February, if you came up 80%, you got to pat yourself on the back. Say, okay, I got 80% of my goal. And what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Well, I had a couple of periods in there where I was drifting. Because if you don't have a goal, you're drifting. There's only two things in life. You either have a goal or you're drifting. See, I have goals when I sit down with my daughter, Becky. I have goals when I sit down with Beth. What? There's certain things I want to get across to them, but I don't want them to think I had a premeditated thing. So I know that when I'm with my wife, there's a couple things I want to say to her. It's usually about how much I love her. Right? I've been married 48 years to the only love of my life. She believed in me when I didn't believe myself. But you should have goals about everything you do. When you put your kids to bed, you should have a goal with them. Right? Here's another one. Affirmations are powerful things because you say them out of your mouth and you believe in your heart. Remember those 6 steps? I didn't finish that. Now you know why I got a bad grades at Mesmer. I have attention deficit. So the number 1 was write down the amount you desire. Number 2, what are you going to give up in exchange? How many prospecting calls, right? How many showings? How many closings? And then number 3, set a deadline in stone with no exit strategy. Number 4, write a simple plan that you're going to execute from now on. Like, I'm going to get 10 prospect calls a day. I'm just going to call 10 people randomly or whatever. And I'm just going to get the word out that I'm a realtor. Because if you're going to start setting these goals, you have to have activity first. Number 5, you write out steps 1 to 4, first person already accomplished. Like I cash flow $400,000 in 2023. It's important to say first person already accomplished. And then number 6, which most people don't do, you got to read it out loud with enthusiasm. See, I know people that I teach this to, they go like this. I'm going to make $250,000 this year. I'm going to make 10 phone calls. Man, do you think their inner person believes that? You should Google Think and Grow Rich, 6 steps to turn your goals and dreams into reality, and it'll print it out for you, right? Say it out loud with enthusiasm. Then you got to visualize it done. See the difference? You know, I don't know what award they give out if you make 100,000 at Keller or get yourself an award, but you got to see yourself with all the people in your office saying, I knew you were going to do it, girl. I knew you were going to do it. See, you got to see it done. You got to feel it done, and you got to take possession of it. You got to learn to take possession of it, because I'm going to tell you something, and I'm just about closing now because I'm getting off here at 10:02. But hey, your imagination is powerful, either positive or negative. So when your kids go to school and you're worrying about school things that are bad right now, don't tell me you're not visualizing that. You can even pray over your kids, but what are you imagining? See, it's not just what you say, it's what you're imagining. And so you have to learn to imagine yourself there already before you get there. You got to know the feeling it's going to feel like before you get there. And if it wasn't a billionaire teaching me this, I wouldn't be teaching it to you today. I thank God every day that that man stuck with me, because I had 5 bad years in the business, but he never gave up on me. I never understood why. He was almost like a father to me. But then again, you know what I realized too? That even though my father was kind of negative with me, and it wasn't his fault, he didn't even know his father, that God had this mentor for me in my late 30s. But I didn't know it till he met me. That's why every time I got a problem, I said, wait a minute, God, you know what? You knew way back there when I was 8, 9 years old, building this low identity, that someone's going to come in my life and mentor me. So from now on, I'm just going to trust you. You should be doing that right now. See what I mean? Remember when something good happened to you. And so it's.
Greg, we lost you. Greg. If you don't pick up on his energy. Shoot. No. Yep.
So Charlie, it's been an honor for me to be on today. I'm going to turn it back over to you, my man. I promised you I'd be out here at 10:02, and I am.
So Greg. Here's, for our group on the call, here's what I'd tell you. And Greg, we lost you for maybe the last 2 minutes. But there was something, maybe the last 1 minute. There was something very evident in the way that he showed up, that you didn't have to hear his message. And he talked about it, right? He said in communication, 55% of the way you communicate is your body language, 38% is your tone. And even though you couldn't hear him, I guarantee you knew what his tone was. Yeah. And here's what I also know. We're 9% of the way through the year. Okay. And the reason why Sarah and I invited Greg on this morning is because too many people have people in their heads or ears, and they needed a mindset shift as it relates to what's in their RAS. Okay. And I thought Greg would be a perfect off the wall character to come in, to be in the middle of your RAS, in between what's in between your own ears, to help you set your perspective as we head into February. Cool. Oberbrunner, thank you for the introduction. Greg, we love you. Appreciate you. Thank you for the message. And guys, go have a freaking awesome Tuesday. Thanks, guys.